Welcome to the Sonic Shaman Show, home of the Coffee Connect and Conscious Connections. The show is dedicated to empowering you to perceive, know, be, and express your unique voice in this world without the fear of judgment of others through healing, coaching, and educational services. In each episode, Hank and his guests offer tools, techniques, and inspiration to help you step into your potency. Now, here is your host, Hank Setala.
Good morning, everyone. So excited to have again Heather MacMillian on with me. And what is really, we are calling the Power Possibilities podcast. And this is interactive. You can make comments, you can ask any questions, bring up what's going on in your world. And we're happy to go off track with our planned theme and go where the energy is.
Yes, exactly. What can we contribute?
Yep. But today is joy is your natural state. And this really comes from the Access Clearing Statement and a comment that Gary Douglas makes in his introduction to the bars video, or actually, I think it was Dain, where they're saying joy is your natural state, even if you don't know it yet. And if you keep just wanting it more than you don't, you're on this like forward projection to have more and more joy show up in your life, or better yet, to put it more accurately, no matter what shows up in your life, to be joyful.
Well, first off, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited for what we can create with this conversation.
Definitely. And let me put, because I think it's very timely, this is the mantra of Access. All of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory. And that's kind of the part of the theme is like, what would it take for you to always have joy no matter what shows up?
Yeah. Wow. And you know, at what age did you stop being the joy that you actually are?
Ooh, well, I don't know if for me it might be different than other people. But kids are so impressionable. And if someone comes home and you're all happy, like I remember this one time, hope my parents aren't watching, right? But I remember this one time that like we were in this big car accident, or not car accident, we were in a traffic jam. And while we're going, my dad is kind of grumbling or whatnot, and I make the comment just to be optimistic and trying to keep that more uplifted space. Well, at least you have an automatic car instead of a stick shift. And once like from that moment on, every time we stopped, he would like put it in park, like because he wanted to be in that misery. And I think that like sometimes with adults, when they want to have this pity party, and it ends up being taught to kids like, well, this is the way to be in the world. You don't want to be joyful. It's way more productive and right to be miserable.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And I mean, also too, it's a thing of when you decide you have to grow up or be an adult, you have to be all serious. How many of you guys bought that point of view?
Yeah. Even with watching Peter Pan, we didn't learn our lesson. Just remembered I forgot to put this public, so I just changed that too. So if you were making comments or wanting to make comments, now we can actually see everything that goes up the studio. But yeah, it's just like we're so impressionable, and I think teachers and parents, they all have the best intentions for kids, but we end up teaching them things that make it what we think is easy for us, instead of giving them the freedom of just being that joy and kind of wading through that and not caring. It really comes down to caring what other people think. Because if kids are going on and being too joyful, how often do they say, what will the neighbors think? Like tone it down a little bit. What will the neighbors think? Whether you're acting out or you're being too happy, it's like, what will the neighbors think? And we're kind of taught to start toning down and dimming our light.
Yeah, and that's one thing that people have discovered going to Access Consciousness classes, and that's the modality that we're talking about here. That the mantra of Access is all of life comes to us with ease, joy, and glory. And Hank and I are both facilitators of this. I'm a certified facilitator. Hank is a certified CFMW, and you can ask him what that means.
It's one of the few actual certificates I have hanging up in my office, which is Certifiable Effing Miracle Worker. That's what CFMW stands for. It's just a fun title. But I also put my Reverend in the front of that because I'm also an ordained minister, so it's like Reverend Hank Setala, CFMW.
Oh my gosh! So he can marry you. If you're going in that direction, if that's going to bring you joy.
Yeah, but required reading before I marry anybody is you must read the book Divorceless Relationships.
Oh my goodness.
If you still would like to move forward after that, then we can talk.
If you've run all the clearings, if you've done that, then you can put your hand on Divorceless Relationships and say, I do.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, instead of vows, it would be a clearing statement.
Exactly.
Oh, we could probably, yeah, I kind of like to feel that. I never actually filled out my form for Ohio to be able to do it legally in Ohio. Every state has its own requirements, but now I just might because it sounds way more fun. Before, it's just like, I don't want to marry anybody. Like, but after this conversation, it's like, well, maybe that wouldn't be so bad.
Exactly.
I could do that with joy in my heart.
Well, and that's a great question with relationships. Like, who could I add to my life that would actually add more joy and more fun, where together there's more ease, joy, and glory for both of us than either of us has alone.
There's actually, I don't know which book they talk about it first, but the idea of being in a creationship instead of a relationship. And the creationship is really the two people are empowering each other to be 100% them. Where so often in relationships, we're looking to sacrifice something of ourselves in order to fit into the limitation or the box that we've defined as a relationship.
Totally. And wow. I mean, I'm just wondering, what would it take to be everything that we are and have people in our lives that actually contribute to more and more of that showing up?
Yeah, because a lot of times we are not showing up on purpose because we're trying to camouflage or fit in, or in Australia, they call it tall poppy syndrome. Whatever it is, when you fully show up, what if we're afraid of outgrowing or outpacing or not being able to be in the relationship anymore because it doesn't fit any longer?
Yeah, or we get these points of view, like you were talking about, the points of view we get as a child that we can't be ourselves and be with other people. That was a big one for me, that the only way I can have me is if I'm alone in the woods or whatever. And what if there are people who actually can inspire us and be that space that allows us to be the joy that we actually are?
Yeah, and I just had something too, and then it just went out of my head. I was about to say, well, on a side note, International Being You Day was a couple weeks ago, and that is a great invitation. Oh, Dad, here's the implant, or one of the things that really cut our beingness down in terms of being joyful, is children should be seen but not heard.
Totally.
Like, because how can a kid be like? Now that I'm a parent, it's like, yeah, good luck. I don't know. Like, if I was quiet when I was little, I don't remember. But like, there's no regulation on that. Like, that's just part of being loud, being a kid, and being like, your children are meant to be seen and not heard. It takes a whole half of your expression and just cuts it out. And Mary Davis is joining us. Good morning, Mary. She says, reflect and multiply joy.
Yeah. What would it take? Like, what would it take to be more joyful today than you've ever been so far? Oh, and I hear the birds talk about joy.
Yeah. Oh, other than when the cat makes an appearance, they're always very joyful. And then it's not that they're not being joyful, they're being mindful because they're being like flying away.
Oh my gosh. I mean, that's one of my favorite things about being in nature, or is to hear the birds and that vibration, that energy of joy, nonstop joy. The birds get up and sing no matter what. They don't have a cranky day where they're like, I'm not going to sing today. They're just that energy of singing and contributing no matter what.
Yeah. Oh, and I think Dain in one of his things was talking about all you have to do is receive the sun. The sun is always out. It's like the joy is ever present. All you have to do is receive it.
Totally. Wow.
I like that.
Yeah. And thank you for that. Because how much energy do we use against ourselves and our bodies to not receive that joy?
A lot. It takes it's kind of like the idea, like the Tower of Lies and things like that. In order to not be yourself naturally and to build this illusion or this ghillie suit, this camouflage to be something else, it takes more work. And the only reason you think it's more work to be joyful is because you don't know how easy it is. Like, once you have that energy again, and you realize, wow, this is so much easier than what I was doing. How all of us can relate to that. Somebody shows us a trick, or somebody shows us not a shortcut, but just an effective way to do something. And now it changes. They call them life hacks, right? It's like, oh my gosh, this just changed my life forever. And then all the rest of that experience comes with ease. And what if stepping into the space of joy is the same way. Good morning, Magic Mike. So glad that you're joining us.
Hi, Mike. Wow. Yeah. And I mean, for me, it begins every morning with asking a question. What would it take to have more fun today than I had yesterday? What would it take for today to be greater than yesterday?
Or what would it take for me to have, I don't know. I think yours is better. I was looking at it, comparing it to like my kids. Like, oh, what would it take for me to have more fun than my kids today? That might be a fun question too.
Well, I mean, and how amazing is it to have parents in the world who empower their kids to be them?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. And what future is that creating? Because one, I was chatting with Hank before we went live with all of you guys, and we were talking about my experience at the Access Consciousness Facilitators class in Houston. And one of the topics that came up is a class that Gary Douglas, the founder of Access, facilitated a few years ago in Washington, D.C., called The Leaders of the Future. And we'll have to find, it's actually been transcribed into a blog on the Access website. And anyone can watch this. It was a free class. And if you had an Access Consciousness account, it's in your account. But it's called The Leaders of the Future. And Gary was talking in that class about what's going on in our world now and what was going on then, which is the school shootings and the kids, the teenagers that were rising up and saying, this isn't okay. Our world has to change. This is the world I'd like to see. And what if the world you'd like to see could be created from your choice, your question, your willingness to see a different possibility, not just for you, but for everyone. So I really encourage you to check out that blog. And Gary's talking about these leaders of the future, the kids, and how amazing to empower your kids to be the ease, joy, and glory that they are so that they can step in to be those leaders of the future.
Yeah, and Gary Douglas is such an advocate or the idea that children are the ones that are going to fix this world, that fix the mess that's been created. That for access classes, children, I believe 16 and under can attend an access class for free.
Yeah.
So like when I'm teaching bars June 6th, if there's children that want to be in a class, they can actually, and there's even a special book. They like made it like actually, I think I prefer the kids manual over the adult manual, but they actually made a special manual for kids to make it more engaging for children. And what does that say about me? But to make it more engaging for children and all that. And even like the foundation class or COP, all the classes are the same way. Children can attend for free, or if they're above 16 and below 18, it's half price.
Wow. Yeah. I'm looking here. I'm a little distracted trying to find that link, but we'll have to put it in the comments afterwards if there's a way that we can do that. Because it's so inspiring. And one of the questions that Gary gave in that class was, what can I be and do today to create more consciousness right away? Asking a question.
Yeah. And more consciousness, the way that you put that, it also feels like it's not just consciousness for me, but it's consciousness for the world.
Yeah, I mean, that's a question that is about the kingdom of we. I mean, it's something that we talk about in Access. It's that, and we're included in that, and our kids and the earth and those birds that are joyfully singing to us. And it's about choices that we can make that contribute to everything being greater for everyone. And what if joy is one of those choices? I mean, when and where did you buy that you couldn't be joyful and that it wasn't a contribution? What if it is?
Yeah. And I think the main thing that keeps us from joy is our addiction to judgment and our addiction to polarity. There was an author once who compared that if you go to the ice cream shop and you had your heart set on chocolate, and now they don't have chocolate, and you're like the Karen. Like everyone knows the term Karen, right? But in the case this is someone's watching it in like a long time from now, basically somebody that when something doesn't go their way, they just basically lose their mind and they go off on everybody, kicking the counter, flipping off the trash. How could you be out of chocolate? But a preference over a preference over an addiction would be something like, oh, they're out of chocolate, no problem, I joyfully have vanilla. Like you just roll with whatever shows up. It's just like, cool, I'm going to go with the flow, and you just choose who you're going to be in creationship to that, which is of course joy. But if you're in addiction or in a judgment about it, that's where the Karen shows up, and it's not necessarily as light of an experience. Just a great little segue, or it's not segue, but an example of that. And a personal story, when I was going to New York almost every month for over 2 years, my wife would always ask me, are you going to miss me? But in my mind, well, if I miss her, that's taking away joy, that it's impacting my state. So I can't say, yes, I'm going to miss her. So I said, absolutely not. But I do have a preference for your presence. But really, that's what the way I was looking at it is, if anything takes away my joy, there must be a judgment, or there must be some sort of charge on it from a polarity standpoint, because otherwise it's just, you can just be joyful. But if it impacts that, that's where you start asking the question, where did I say it's okay to give up my joy in relationship or creationship to this? And then start working through whatever the judgments are or the charge and polarity is that doesn't allow you to experience whatever showed up with joy.
Yeah, and one of the easiest and most fun ways to get free from that judgment and polarity is something that Hank mentioned before, which is Access Consciousness bars, which is amazing for adults and kids. And it's 32 points on the head that when you touch them, it creates that beautiful magic space of happiness and joy. And I am so happy since I was live in Houston, getting my bars run every day, running hours of bars. It was just magic.
Yeah. And for everybody local to Cleveland, on the first Thursday of every month, that's why I put up the website, emergenceofbeing.com. First Thursday of every month, we have a bars clinic, and it is pre-registration. So you can register. Wow. That poor bird just hit the window. Did you hear that?
I guess they wanted to contribute.
Yeah. The bird's like, I want to express my joy into the window. That was really loud.
Wow.
But anyway, if you're local to Cleveland, and if you feel like that bird that's hitting against a window, you can come to the bars night and get a little bit of ease and relaxation in your life. But you just register online. It's free donation offering. You can donate whatever you'd like. And if you do it in advance, you can do it by credit card or just bring cash for your practitioner. But it's every Thursday, and the sessions run about 30 minutes. If we're low on people, if we don't have a lot, for whatever reason, sometimes it goes a little bit longer if we have the flexibility to do it. And I encourage everybody, if you really like bars, just become a practitioner so you can come to our practitioner nights. Yeah, you don't have to be doing it all the time for people and getting paid, but you could. But just like coming and becoming a bars practitioner, there's a community around it. So on the third Thursday of every month, we hold a practitioner night, which is awesome too. So there's a lot of benefit to it if that's light for you. And if not, then there's so much content in the website, in the books, like what we're going to be posting about the blog that Heather mentioned with the leadership, or Being You, Changing the World. That's my favorite book from Access. There's a ton of places where you can start if you're not ready for an in-person experience. There's a lot of other things you can do too.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And it's just super fun. So check it out. Come play.
Absolutely. A quiet group today. I can see people, they're just in bed, listening, and they're like, oh, I don't really want to ask a question because then I have to look at the screen now. No.
I know. It's early. I like this high energy morning time. It's fun.
No, it's great. And then my son doesn't know what happens on Wednesdays because I come into the room like, oh, good morning, Max. I think it's wake up and get dressed. Use joy and glory. Here we go. Speaking of, it is that time where I have to go wake up Max. But if you have topics that you want us to talk about, let us know in the comments. And I know we still have been talking about the relationship one and conscious parenting. That is coming. We're going to plan a little bit more robustly around that. But if you have any other topics that you want to hear, let us know, and we're happy to get to them. How about a final clearing or something before we go?
What energy, space, consciousness, choice, magic, miracles, mysteries, and possibilities can you and your body be to be the joy you truly be for all eternity with total ease? And everything that doesn't allow that, will you destroy and uncreate it all?
Yes.
Right, wrong, good, bad, online, pod, poc, shorts, boys, and beyonds. And for those of you who don't know, that's the clearing statement of access. And you can check it out in a bars class or at theclearingstatement.com.
Yep. And I also put the link to that in the description of the video because I knew that we always talk about at least one clearing. So might as well put it there. So you can also go to the video and it's a direct link to where it is on the Access site if you don't remember the domain name. But awesome. But thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. We will catch you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for joining us today for the show. The Sonic Shaman is part of the Emergence of Being Contributor Network. Visit emergenceofbeing.com to learn about all the contributors and learn about our services and upcoming events. Please take a moment to subscribe to the channel. You can contribute to the show by supporting our efforts and sharing our content with those you care about and those who need it most.